Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of the Reid Lancaster Show. I'm really excited to bring you this podcast. We are going to be starting a series on all the SEC teams, and we're going to walk through all their schedules. I'm going to give you what my predictions are, and then I'm also going to give you what I think each team's ceiling and floor is for the upcoming 2026 football season. So it's going to be really fun. I do want to let you know that I am currently finishing up our next podcast, which is going to be on fitness and nutrition. We're going to circle back around to that. Um, but I'm going to go into more detail about what our online training program is. If this is something that you or somebody you know is interested in, please let me know. You can shoot me a DM or you can click on the links on our Instagram page. We're all facilitating this through an app. So your experience is going to have video instructions for your workout plan. Your nutrition is going to have all the recipes. It's going to generate a grocery list for you. It's really cool. So I'm excited for you to be able to check that out. Again, follow us on our Instagram page and you can click on the links and preview that. But if you have any questions, shoot us a direct message and I'd love to talk to you. But today we're going to start with 4 SEC teams. It's going to be a 4-part series. We're going to go through each team's schedule, as I said. And the 4 today are going to be Alabama, Arkansas, Auburn, and Florida. Okay, so let's get into it. Starting out with the University of Alabama. Okay, so we're going to see what Kalen DeBoer does this year. I know a lot of people are talking about him around the nation, but Alabama fans, don't freak out yet. Okay, Kalen DeBoer's fine. Alabama's fine. You just had the greatest run in college football history, so you're getting back to what's normal for not even normal for most fans. Like you're still one of the best teams around, so be glad about that. But my prediction for Alabama is going to be 10-2 this season. I think you have a floor of 8-4 and a ceiling of 12-0, being the number 1 ranked team in the nation and having the number 1 spot in the college football playoff. So something to look forward to. Interesting facts are you lost 10 players to the NFL draft, two of those being in the first round. But I don't think that you're going to take a step down in quarterback. I know Ty Simpson went in the first round, but I do think the one you have coming up, specifically Keelan Russell, is going to be better than him. I'm just going to be honest with you. I believe that. Um, Ryan Williams at receiver, he did have a little sophomore slump. He went from his freshman year having 865 yards, 8 touchdowns, to 689 yards and 4 touchdowns. But look for him to bounce back. There were some issues last year with him dropping the ball. I don't think that's going to be the case. Latsier Brooks, as a true freshman, 441 yards, 2 touchdowns. I think those numbers are going to bump up. That guy was amazing last year from the film that I watched. I think you got something there to be excited about. On defense, the 2 main guys I think you got to highlight are Yonsei Pierre, first team All American. He's NFL bound. Great player. If you're going to try to run the ball in Alabama, that defensive line is going to be stacked. And Bray Hubbard at safety position in the secondary. 79 tackles last year, 4 interceptions, 6 pass deflections, and 3 forced fumbles. You're going to get a lot of production out of him. So look for that leadership on the back end of your defense. So Alabama 10-2. I'll look at the schedule here. You're starting off at East Carolina. That's a win. At Kentucky, you got to win. The revenge game against Florida State in Tuscaloosa, that's going to be a fun game to be at. 2:30 kickoff. That one's been announced. And then the next 2 games, South Carolina and then at Mississippi State. I think Alabama, I think you're 5-0 going to play against Georgia in Tuscaloosa. That's going to be a night game. Not sure what time, but has been announced night game. So I'm really hoping both teams are undefeated going into that because that's going to be a great night of football to be able to watch. The coverage on that will be amazing. Should be college game day, so great atmosphere there. After that, you go to Tennessee, which I don't think you're going to have a problem with. I think Tennessee is going to have a little fall off this year, but we'll see how they do. Then the next game for Alabama that I'm really curious about, October 24th, Texas A&M. I've got Texas A&M in the college football playoff. I think they're legitimate with Marcel Reid at quarterback. So I'm unsure about that. And then to finish out the year, you've got at LSU, who it's going to be hard. I guarantee that's a night game. if you follow college football, LSU somehow gets every big game at night there in Baton Rouge. Not really sure how, but it always happens. So you should still win that game though. But it'll be a tough environment at LSU, at Vanderbilt, home against Chattanooga, and then Auburn. Um, I think you win those last 4 games. So really, Alabama, if you can be 5-0, go to Georgia, and let's just say you do lose to Georgia, and then you lose to Texas A&M 2 weeks later. I still think you finish 10-2. That's my prediction. Um, the other 2 games outside of Georgia, Texas A&M, the reason I have you 8-4 as your floor would be if you lost to Tennessee and LSU. If you did that, that would be a 4-game losing streak. And I don't think anybody's used to that at Alabama. I know we're not used to seeing that at all. So I wouldn't count on that, but I believe 10-2 is a good spot for you. And 10-2 gets you into the playoffs, no problem. So Alabama, I've got you playoff bound at 10-2. The next team, Arkansas. Now I have talked about Arkansas in the last couple podcasts, and I'm just going to tell you, looking at their schedule, Arkansas, I'm going to be rooting for you all year long because I want you to surprise me. But my prediction, I'm giving you 4-8, 2-10 as your floor, and 6-6 as your ceiling. That's just going to be it's going to be a tough year, I think, for Arkansas. Interesting things are last year you started the year off 2-0. You beat Alabama A&M, and then you beat Arkansas State. Then you lost 10 in a row. That's not good. Several of those games were about one possession. I get it. There were a couple of other teams I'm about to talk about that are in that same boat, but you've got to win those. But even if you won half of those, that's still putting you at 5, 6 wins. So that's why I think your ceiling this year is 6-6. You get a bowl game. I think if you're an Arkansas fan, that's really what you're banking on. Now, players to watch out for. Your quarterback is more than likely going to be KJ Jackson. Last year didn't see a lot of playing time, but he threw for a total of 441 yards, 3 touchdowns, 61% completion. But his QB rating was actually pretty high. So I was unaware about that the first podcast I did, but I looked at his QBR and I was like, okay. So maybe there's a glimmer of hope there. But if I were you, the player I'm banking on for offensive production is transfer running back from Memphis, Sutton Smith. The guy had 669 yards, 7 touchdowns, but the key part of that is he averaged 6.6 yards a carry last year. And I don't care. I mean, you're a Division I college football and you're averaging over 6 yards a carry. You get the ball in that guy's hands. No doubt that's going to be your playmaker. On defense, the guy that you got to highlight if you're Arkansas, Quincy Rhodes Jr., 44 tackles, 15 and a half tackles for loss last year, 8 sacks. So you need production out of him. Hopefully your defense can keep you in ball games. But, if you have KJ Jackson play solid at quarterback and Sutton Smith run for 1,200, 1,400 yards through the year, then I think that 6-6 is probably reachable. Let's take a look at your schedule and go over that. Your first game is against North Alabama. You've got to win that. I don't think you're going to have an issue. At Utah, then Georgia, you have Tulsa, and then at Texas A&M, home Tennessee, at Vandy, home Missouri, at Auburn, home South Carolina, at Texas, home against LSU. So I'm giving you 4-8 because I think you're going to get North Alabama, you're going to get Tulsa, I think you're going to get Vanderbilt, and then I think you're either going to get Missouri or South Carolina, one of those 2 teams. That's why I've got you at 4. I don't think you're going to beat LSU at home. I don't think you're going to beat Texas on the road. That would be a huge shock. I don't think you're going to beat Auburn only because it's at Jordan-Hare. I don't think you're going to beat Vanderbilt away. Vandy, I think they've got some leftover talent from last year. And then I don't have you beating Tennessee. I definitely don't have you beating Texas A&M. So maybe you can sneak in and beat a Utah and then actually beat South Carolina, Missouri, and then maybe you take one game away from Auburn or Vanderbilt. It's totally not out of the question. I just don't think you do it. But 4-8 is what I'm looking at. There's there's definitely 4 games. I'm like Georgia, Texas A&M, Texas, LSU. That would be a huge upset if you pulled those off. Yeah, there's just no chance you're going to be close to being in those competitions, in my opinion. But again, the season hasn't started yet, so let's see how that looks going forward. Next team, Auburn. My prediction: 7-5. Think you're going to have the first winning season in a few years. Your floor, I've got you 4-8, and your ceiling is 9-3. Auburn, you went 5-7 last year. 6 losses were by one possession or less, or by one possession, and then the other game you lost was against Georgia, who you were beating at halftime. So the exact same boat as Arkansas. You were in several games and you just didn't win it. So same thing. Was it the coach? Was it the culture? It's going to be it's tough to say at this point in time. It's going to be interesting to see what Byron Brown does at quarterback. I think running back room is your strong point with Jeremiah Cobb leading the way, and then you got running backs behind that transfer from Baylor, and then a couple of guys got some playing time last year. I think you're 4 backs deep, so I think you're going to be good there. Wide receiver is going to be a question. It looks like the 3 starters are going to be transfers that you brought from South Florida, which, if talent really is not an issue, if they step up to the SEC plate, your quarterback and receivers, same system, same coach, just another team. So they're going to have chemistry, so that could be a good thing for you. Linebacker position is going to be solid. Xavier Atkins, 84 tackles, 17 tackles for loss, 9 sacks last year. Yeah, I mean, he's the life of your defense. I think he's on the field. If you can get 80 tackles out of him again this year, your defense is going to be good. The front four or the question marks about Auburn front four on defense. So again, my prediction 7-5. We'll go through their schedule here. There's just along with my next team up is Florida, and I'll go through them. Auburn and Florida, it's there's a lot of games that are just you don't really know how well the team is going to be. So I mean, right now preseason they're 50-50 to me. Um, I think you're definitely going to beat Southern Miss. I do think you beat Vanderbilt. I think you beat Arkansas, Mississippi State, Sanford. So I think you've got 5 there, and I just skipped through the schedule, but I think you got 5 for sure. But game by game, you've got Baylor, Southern Miss, Florida, Vanderbilt, Tennessee, Georgia, LSU, Ole Miss, Arkansas, Mississippi State, Sanford, Alabama. Like I said, those 5 that I think you've definitely got, and then maybe you beat Baylor game 1. You also have Florida game 3. Just that's going to be a game with 2 brand new coaches. We don't know what's going to happen. The thing about the Auburn and Florida game is it's 6 p.m. kickoff, but that is the same night as LSU going to Ole Miss. So I'm going to have 2 screens on for that because the hype around LSU going to Ole Miss with Lane Kiffin is going to be insane. Almost wish this game was a 2:30 kickoff. It'd be a little bit better. But maybe night game in Jordan Hare will help Auburn out against Florida. But that one's a toss up. But I think you got 5 for sure. And then, who knows what Tennessee is going to be. If you pull out, you've got your iffy games: Tennessee, Florida, Baylor. I just don't think you have the talent to beat Georgia, Ole Miss, or Alabama. That's why I have your ceiling at 9-3. Those 3 teams, Georgia, Ole Miss, and Bama, are just probably going to be a step ahead of you in those. So they'll be upsets. So 7-5, 9-3 being the ceiling there. And the last team on this episode we're going to cover is who I just mentioned, Florida. My prediction is 8-4. Okay, with a floor being a 4-8, that would be disastrous if you're Florida. But what I'm about to tell you is why I've got Florida on my Cinderella teams this year. They're dark horses for the college football playoff. At 10-2 is their ceiling, and I'm about to go over that with you. But I do think Florida has that chance to go 10-2 this year. Last year, in 5 losses, they had scored 1 touchdown, which is unacceptable. But if you look at their roster right now, Shaden Ball, running back, one of the best ones in the SEC. He's 6'1", 230 pounds, 1,100 yards, and he averaged 5.3 yards carry. So Florida, you've got a great running back, and your receivers are going to be great. I think with Dallas Wilson, Eric Singleton, and Vernell Brown, you're loaded with those three guys. Spread them out, and not many defenses are going to be able to cover you. So it's all depending on how Aaron Philo plays. If you get quarterback production, Florida, your offense is going to be fantastic. And the reason that I'm so strong about them being 10-2 is not even necessarily the offense, it's the defensive side of the ball. They return all three linebackers. And when you do that, those guys are going to know their assignments. They're going to play together and they're going to be able to put everybody else in the best positions. You've got three coaches on the field there. So those linebackers are going to set the tone for the defense. And I think they're going to be phenomenal all year long. So let's go through Florida's schedule, and I'll tell you what I mean. Ceiling 10-2, my prediction, and then their floor. But Florida, you're 8-4 is what I have you at, just because I'm going to go through the games I think you definitely win. Florida Atlantic, Campbell, Missouri, South Carolina, Kentucky, Vandy, Florida State. That's 7 right there that you should not have a problem with. The other games on this list are Auburn, Ole Miss, Missouri, Texas, Georgia. Okay, I really think Florida, if you beat, you should be 2-0. Florida Atlantic, Campbell, go to Auburn. If you win that Auburn game, take some momentum to Ole Miss. It is in Gainesville. You're 4-0 after Ole Miss, and then Missouri, South Carolina should not be an issue. The tail for you is going to be October 17th, and then a bye week, and then October 31st. You've got Texas and then Georgia, back-to-back games with a week in between. Let's just say you lose those two games. To end the year, you've got Oklahoma, Kentucky, Vandy, Florida State. I think Oklahoma's going to be good, but those last three games, I think you've got it. That's why my prediction for you 8-4 is because I think you got 7 games completely locked up. The only 2 games on this schedule I think that you are not going to be matched well with is Texas and Georgia. Outside of that, you can play with Oklahoma, you can play with Ole Miss, and you can play with Auburn. You win those 3 games, even if you drop Texas and Georgia, if they're close, you're 10-2, and you're going to the playoffs. It'll be bad, let's just say, if you do drop that Ole Miss game, and then Texas and Georgia, you're 9-3. You don't have a key, like big time win on your schedule to get you to the playoffs at 9-3. 9-3 is also not a given. I think if 10-2 in the SEC, you're given a spot. 9-3 without a landmark victory, you're probably not going to get in. So Florida, I think you've definitely got to make sure Texas and Georgia are the only 2 games you can drop. So outside of that, you got to win them all. But 8-4 is my prediction. 10-2 being the ceiling, and let's see if you can make the playoffs. So that was the first 4 teams on the SEC list that we're going to go through in this series of episodes. I'm probably going to throw in a couple of different podcasts, as I mentioned, the fitness and nutrition in between these, but we will get through all the teams on the SEC list, and then we're going to highlight some of the bigger teams around the nation. We'll get into Ohio State, Oregon, USC, some of those teams in later episodes after the SEC. But appreciate you listening, and make sure you follow us on Instagram and subscribe on YouTube, and we'll see you next time.